Hello there and welcome to my reaction to The Manga Was Better by Gigguk. Um, I'm a bit late to this, it's been a few days since the video came out, but the title is still very interesting for me. Uh, and I am not a supporter of this claim, like in general, but there are situations when the manga is actually better than the anime, like any kind of Berserk adaptation or One Piece. What I hope, though, of this video is that he's not gonna spoil something I care about, but something that was not animated, like, I don't know, JoJo parts that weren't animated yet, or Chainsaw Man, or Bleach. I don't know, something. Really anything that I haven't seen. That would be good. Thank you, Gigguk. Please, please, and thank you, please. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, become a member. Let's begin. I almost forgot to turn this on.
You either die an anime fan, or you live long enough to see yourself become a manga reader. Sun Tzu, God of War Ragnarok. Maybe you've only started watching anime, maybe even watching it for years.
Like, I became that with One Piece. I was the anime viewer only. I watched a lot of the show as an anime, but then I switched to manga because anime got pacing in the anime got extremely annoying.
Maybe you don't even watch anime anymore, but you still watch these videos. What the hell are you still doing here? Eventually, we all reach that point where there you are, watching that anime, talking about how much you're enjoying that anime, and then there'll be that one dickhead friend who'll rise up and go, "Why are you watching the anime? Just read the manga, bro. It's so much better." And maybe out of pure spite, you go ahead and read it, just so for once in your life you can shut that guy up. But when you do, you realize, fuck.
He was right.
Friends with a dickhead. The manga was better is a phrase that's become synonymous with our community to the point where it's inescapable. But how much weight does it actually hold? What makes a good adaptation? What makes a bad adaptation? Is the manga actually better? Is your friend really a dickhead?
Probably.
Yes. You know who isn't? Today's sponsor, Bespoke Post. Gentlemen and ladies, do you like cool stuff? Of course you do. Who doesn't like cool stuff? Well, Bespoke Post has got you covered. Bespoke Post is a membership club for top shelf goods and under the radar brands where you'll receive a box of awesome goods every single month. It's completely free to sign up and you'll have flexibility to cancel anytime you want. I am so glad to be working with Bespoke Post again because since they last sent me some stuff, I genuinely still use it. This is their handy bag I got from their Weekend the Box last time, and as you can see, since I've been traveling so much this year, I have gotten a lot of use out of this. It's genuinely been so perfect every time I go for a short weekend trip, or when I just need to throw some equipment in when I'm going to a shoot. Each one of these boxes of awesome contain around $70 worth of items, but cost you a fraction of that value. Every month you'll be introduced to cool new products ranging from outdoor gear, barware, home and kitchen goods, clothing, and so much more. 90% of the products come from small brands, many of which are based in the US. All tailored to your personal taste after filling out your personal preferences. And don't worry if you don't like everything they choose for you, because each month you can preview all the items you're gonna get. You can choose to keep it, swap it for another box. So it's not a mystery box. Entirely. You'll only pay for what you want, and you'll never get products that aren't useful to you. This month I'm going to be receiving their Point, Cask, and Roast box to try out. Of all of these, I think I'm most excited to try out the White Oak Mini Barrel and Bottling Kit from the Cask box to really level up my newfound appreciation I've gotten for Japanese whiskey since I've been moving here. So, what are you waiting for? To get 20% off your first box of awesome, you can click the link in the description, use code GIGUK20 at the checkout, or just go to bespokepost.com/GIGUK20. Thank you again to Bespoke Post for sponsoring me today. Back to the video. The topic of manga and anime adaptations is a long and nuanced discussion that's been had so many times in our community that I don't even know where I can even begin.
As I said before,
every conversation you have about manga adaptations will eventually lead you one step closer to mentioning Berserk. You have arguably the first thing fingertips and one of the greatest stories ever told. So surely, if you just stick to the source material, no matter how it looks, can an adaptation that stays completely faithful to the story and characters still be bad?
The Black Swordsman, you!
Yes. Berserk 2016 is the benchmark of everything that can go wrong.
The problem is it looks
it's the boogeyman. Other mangas
extremely
tell each other
terrible
when they're sitting around at the campfire. If you're a bad boy, boy, the Berserk monster is gonna come visit your animation studio. No, Daddy, please. I've been a good boy. Please, give me a good adaptation. Yeah, well, tell that to Promised Neverland over there. But adaptations don't nearly need to be as bad in this order of magnitude for the manga to be better. In fact, Berserk has not had one, not two, but 3 chances to get it right, with all of them having their own shortcomings we see with a lot of other adaptations. The movies had updated animations, some beautiful scenes, but sacrificed precious time building up its cast of characters. So many anime have
this one doesn't actually look bad.
Okay, we only have a certain amount of runtime, so do we focus on those big climactic moments or a quiet scene with the characters? Fuck it, get rid of all those quiet parts, not realizing that it's those nuanced character scenes that make those big moments hit so hard in the first place.
Yeah.
Ironically, the best adaptation Berserk got was its first one, which is only really held back by a fuck you cliffhanger ending and animation that can rival a PowerPoint presentation. It's still a really good anime because, well, it's fucking Berserk. But here's the real question. Can I definitively say that even though this is a good anime, it does enough to warrant a watch over just solely reading the masterpiece of the manga? Well, yes, because it gave us some of the best dub outtakes of all time.
All right, who's gonna jerk me off?
Sometimes I ask myself,
my friend actually read the manga because I recommended it to him, the Berserk specifically, just in case he'll say it. And then he recently watched that 90s show, and he was telling me that there's a lot of scenes that were cut out from the show that are in the manga. Probably go into category of like the quieter scenes that were cut out and they left maybe more fightings in, stuff like that. Also some kind of maybe gory parts, I don't know. Some kind of important, but maybe not necessary parts were cut out. Manga is just a more fuller experience most of the time than the anime, because they have to cut stuff out to make it pacing better, even if it is sacrificing some of those quieter moments. It just depends on your preference in the end, I think. You could watch Berserk 2016 and be fine with it, with the way it came out there. If you are like that, I am sad for you.
if an anime follows a manga one-to-one and all it does is add music, color, and voice acting, is that enough to call it a good adaptation?
Yes.
And for me, that answer is no. If I watch
Really?
the first episode and I see that all you're doing is adding a generic soundtrack and mediocre animation,
Oh,
fuck it.
it'll
I'm just gonna go
generic,
read the
yeah.
manga and say I'll watch the anime. Don't lie to me. I know you've done the same. Look, man, I'm
No, I
a grown-ass
haven't.
adult now with grown-ass responsibilities, and we know reading manga is basically watching anime, except you can do it way faster. To me, an anime really needs to do something above average to warrant a watch, because so many...
I mean, above average, yes, but that's not what you prompted.
Anyway. That's why seasonal anime have low-key become a manga recommendation platform for me, for those shows that I find catch my interest, but just have completely bog-standard production values. If you're wondering how I go through so much isekai, that's the secret. And on top of that, before an adaptation can even be good, there are so many things it has to avoid to be bad. Back in the day, long-running anime had this obsession with staying on air for as long as possible, but every franchise would run into the same problem of catching up to the current manga it was based on. Their solution? Let's just make them do a bunch of stupid bullshit. Back when I first watched Naruto, even my dumbass 12-year-old brain registered something was off when I was like, why did Naruto go from chasing Sasuke to becoming a giant robot? Does no one here have any urgency about what just happened? And it was then that I discovered the concept of filler episodes. Thankfully, modern day anime has realized now that basically everyone skips
Naruto and
filler
Bleach
episodes
are the
anyway,
most.
but where it gets really messy is when the filler starts getting integrated into normal episodes. And I hate to do this to one of my favorite franchises.
Wait about One Piece for a second. For me, Naruto and Bleach were the biggest kind of culprits of that. I think Bleach has more percentage of filler than Naruto does, but overall, it's just they both have a lot of filler, and that is sad. One Piece doesn't have a lot of filler. They do have some, but that's also not a good thing, because they've been adapting less and less manga per episode, so they don't actually ever catch up with the manga, which makes pacing very, very bad, and why people switch from the anime to the manga.
Franchises of all time, but that's the reason I stopped watching One Piece. The One Piece anime is something I hold dear to my heart, but after a certain point, the anime just became unfucking watchable for me. I'd noticed several episodes in a row would have a 5-minute recap of stuff I literally just saw.
Yeah.
They'd keep cutting to characters nobody gave a shit about to do a scene that doesn't fucking matter. Pacing was murdered by characters constantly pausing and having extended stare-offs where absolutely nothing was achieved except padding out the runtime. This is when filler ceases to be just a minor inconvenience you can skip to something that actively
I don't know
hurts the
if I
viewing
could call that a
experience just so
filler.
you can stretch out the material you have.
For me, filler is actually, well, I guess if you go just from the word filler, it's anything that fills in the gaps, right? So, or something that helps not to create a gap in production. But I don't know, when I hear filler and I think about actual arcs or maybe an episode, not necessarily multiple episode arcs, that have nothing to do with the main storyline or stuff like that, that's never was in the manga in the first place. But I guess like adding that stuff in the beginning is, I don't know.
Have as far as possible. And so I started reading the manga and never looked back since.
Yeah. I have looked back because nowadays at least it has, like the anime has good animation in One Piece because they hired, I don't remember if they hired more people or they hired just more experienced people to work on it, and it looks good, but the pacing issues are still there. So I'm not gonna go back to it, but I don't mind watching a fight scene or two when it pops up in my recommended.
Manga readers have this
Just to see
obsession
how
with
they
getting
made
a
it.
perfectly faithful adaptation, and it's easy to understand why. We've seen Promised Neverland Season 2, we've seen Tokyo Ghoul Route 8,
haven't.
we've seen what happens when an anime looks at a manga and goes, no, I'm actually gonna do my own thing now, bye bye, fuck you. Anime original endings, shows that completely rush through the source material, the list goes on, and because of this, it feels like there's a pressure to stick as closely to the manga as possible, but is being 100% faithful always the best way to go? The Boys is a great example of this. It took a violent, edgy for edge's sake comic and reworked it to be a modern
He's talking
satire
about
of
comics in a
superheroes
video about
commercialization,
manga?
making it a far more interesting
Disgusting.
product than it ever was.
Unsubscribe.
That was diabolical.
But anime has also done similar things. K-On! Transformed a 4-koma manga into a coherent ongoing storyline with a bit of music sprinkled in that became one of the most beloved slice-of-life anime to
Never
ever
watched
come
it.
out. Devilman Crybaby did. Well, have you seen the
Also
original
never watched
Devilman
it.
at all? Being faithful, while proving to be a stable route to success, can sometimes be a shackle if the anime is just trying to take every panel, every scene, and putting them on the screen. Because what I think we don't see enough is what it means to adapt to anime itself. Manga has a lot of strengths as a medium. You turn the page of a Junji Ito horror manga and it's effectively a jump scare. You're greeted with this detailed, horrific imagery that will haunt your nightmares, gruesome drawings that'll seep into your unconscious, never to leave your memories again. And in the anime, it's like, why did Squidward have a baby with Megamind? Transforming a manga to anime doesn't mean just adding movement. You need to know what works for anime and vice versa. You know, it's easy to show you a panel of Mob Psycho 100 and a scene from the anime and be like, I wonder what's the best way to experience this story. But I think it goes deeper than just animation equals good, because what I
It's
think is
just
more
hard to tell
important
what
is
makes a good
capturing the soul
adaptation.
of the original while translating it to what works best for film. And to make my point, we need to talk about something entirely different. Light novels. You can almost always tell within 5 minutes when a show is adapting from a light novel as opposed to a manga. Characters aren't afraid to go on overly indulgent internal monologues. There will be long scenes of nothing but just dialogue between 2 or more characters with almost nothing visually interesting going on. Character A is talking, okay, cut to character A standing still and talking. Character B starts talking, okay, cut to character B. A is talking again, okay, cut back to A, then B again, then A.
なんかラノベみたいだな。
It all feels so rigid, like an AI program looked at the script and went, okay, plot understood, here are your storyboards. And only in the rarest moments does it feel like any thought was put into the visual aspect beyond the dramatic scenes and action moments. Cut to manga adaptations, boom, instantly, dialogue is used more sparingly. You normally get a sense there's a bigger emphasis on visual storytelling, which makes sense because did you know? Manga has visuals. Of course there are exceptions, but on a whole, anime based on manga often feel very different to anime based on light novels because the source material is always written or drawn with their original medium in mind. But Shouldn't the anime take this into account? You look at a dynamic shot like this and you immediately feel, alright, now this is an anime original production, not bound to any manga. But way more anime could do things that are suited only for anime, like one of the big things where manga can falter, it's in the action. I'm sure we've all read that one manga where there's that big epic fight happening. Punches are being
you can't
thrown,
tell what's going
swords
on.
are swinging, shit is hitting the metaphorical fan, and you're like, I can't tell what's going on. Subtle movements in intense action scenes can easily get lost on a still page, so manga needs to compensate by portraying big, clearly defined actions so the reader doesn't lose track of what's going on or just have a bloody monologue explain it. Take a look at this live action choreographed fight scene. This one's a favorite of mine. You have two guys fighting, the protagonist and the big boss, and the big boss is always just one step ahead. The man has counters for counters of your counters, and this is all conveyed in split seconds. No explanation, you can see what's going on. Now, if this was a manga,
But they do use
this
slow
fight would be
motion.
like, okay, well, he's gonna do is throw a mid kick to my left, so what I'm gonna do is catch his kick, then elbow his leg so he can't kick anymore. And the other guy would be like, haha, fool, I'll just bend my leg at the last second, blocking his elbow
Jojo
and
be like,
nullifying his attack. Oh no, he blocked my elbow. Well, in that case, what I do next is... The great thing about anime is that these rules do not apply. So why is it that almost every adaptation pretends that it doesn't? More often than not, anime fights of a manga have the pacing of the manga fight. The framing is exactly the same. Actions get explained even if we can clearly convey it through movement.
I actually like that when they
use
use the same frames.
You shouldn't always need to do this. Part of the reason I love the Hanami fight from Jujutsu Kaisen is that it strikes that perfect balance of explaining Todo's power but still showing you the effect it has on the opponent. But there doesn't even need to be any complex action going on. Ufotable looked at Demon Slayer and went, okay, this fight isn't too complicated, so how much can we push the climax of this one part?
Oh,
how
hell
much
yeah.
can we raise the bar of hype and excitement to build towards this one moment? And that resulted in a scene with one of the highest visual spectacles anime has seen. This was one of the moments that defined this year of
And now
anime.
apparently
This
season
incredible,
3
this
is...
out-of-the-world
Its first episode
scene
is in theaters.
was 5 fucking panels in the manga. I mean, look at this.
Yes.
There was a whole panel explaining Uzui's sound power, and they went, no, we don't need this bullshit. This will just mess up with the pacing. We can show this visually. And then proceeded to turn this into...
Yeah, into him hearing it. I actually read the manga before season 2 came out. For Demon Slayer. I did finish it.
Into wine, but this isn't limited
But it's
to
so
action
enjoyable to
scenes
watch the
either.
show.
One of my favorite scenes from Naruto comes from a moment with Shikamaru. Spoilers for Naruto Shippuden, if you still care about that. Shikamaru has just lost his team leader, and they're all in the process of mourning. Randomly, his father invites him to play a game of shogi, which isn't too unusual for the two of them, and in 2 minutes of one single unbroken shot, his father slowly lectures him during the game. First, it starts off pretty calm, but as the words get harsher, you can see a shift in their body language. Shikamaru's emotion starts bubbling. The tax from the shogi board continues. It never cuts away. You feel every bit of awkward silence, every unsaid emotion in the air. The pressure builds up until eventually... And in that moment, his father has given him permission to let out all the pent-up feelings he's been holding on inside. He's finally allowed to mourn. This scene is amazing. It's a masterclass of cinematography and visual storytelling, and it is not in the manga at all. Yeah, by the technical definition, this is actually filler. It's shit like this that shows you what can happen when you start treating anime like anime. A scene like this would have never worked as well in manga form, but with a different approach, you can take what a manga tried to convey and translate into something only anime can do. Berserk, Vagabond, Uzumaki, Goodbye Eri. These masterpieces
Uzumaki's
of
the only
manga
one I've
work
read
so well because
from,
they are manga and fully utilize their medium to the
forgetting
highest
the name.
potential. You can turn to some of these panels
Junji
and it
Ito?
feels like a painting. You can pause the page, analyze every little detail, every single scratch of the pen the artist etched into this page. You can take that moment to just take it all in and marvel in the moment for as long as you need. And in the anime, it's like, oh, hey, that's a pretty background, it's gone. This is just an inherent difference in the medium, and the only chance anime will ever get to adapting these works well is if it can actually play to the strengths of its own medium, rather than trying to emulate the strengths of another, which is so goddamn rare. Is the manga better? Honestly, yes. Most of the time. So many more things can go wrong before they go right. You need to have the right production, the right resources, the right time to make a good adaptation, and even then, if it doesn't do enough to go above and beyond, a lot of us are probably going to end up picking up the manga anyway. But the reason I'll never stop being an anime watcher completely is because when an adaptation does get it right, anime can elevate a manga to heights it could never reach by itself. When you get a truly special adaptation that you get to experience for the first time on screen, it is a magical experience I will never stop chasing, no matter how many mediocre adaptations I need to sit through. And the guy's still a dickhead. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed that video. Thank you very much this month to Alpha Sigma, Basil, Dysfunctional Degenerate, Flabberwocky, Ivido, Jeff, Lavados, Misaka123.
I'll stop it right here. Do I agree with this? I don't know. I kind of feel on the fence about this. Like, is manga better? Like, in general. I think if the manga is big enough, it probably would be picked up. Not probably. There's a big chance that its anime adaptation would be picked up by a company who's very experienced in the field, like Ufotable or Mappa or something like that, or Bones, and they will be able to turn it into an extremely enjoyable show that you could say is better than the manga. But I feel like anything you say, like I could say JoJo's anime is better than the manga. Even though I've never read the manga, I just like how the adaptation works without knowing the original source material. And people who read the manga could agree with this, but they also could disagree with this, saying that, nah, it's actually not because they changed that one little part of the show and it ruined it for them, or anything else like that. Any adaptation cannot please everybody. That's just the whole rule of the world. You cannot please everybody. If it's a perfect 10 out of 10 adaptation, there will be at least one dickhead that will say that, nah, the manga was better. Like with maybe Demon Slayer, that season 2 is extremely good. I would give it a 10 out of 10, at least as an adaptation to the manga. But there probably would be people who say, no, it's actually 0 out of 10, because the pacing of the fight itself was so much longer than it was in the manga. I don't know. I just think it's not black and white. As soon as anime adaptation comes out of some kind of manga or even light novel, there are multiple reasons where most people, let's not go specifically to some people, just most people would consider it good. There would be steps to it, like if it has great animation, but let's say generic music. Some people would say that, oh, it's still better, it's animated on top of the manga, and the music is not playing that big of a role for the show. And they'll think fine. But people who enjoyed the music in the anime would think like, oh, it's too generic, it's lacking that department, so I'll say manga is better. Maybe you can put any kind of music on the background while you read the manga and then make it, you kind of add your own soundtrack to it. And then maybe the opposite, if the animation is not that good, but the music slaps. There'll be people, yes, that's what I wanted. That's anime adaptation is like animated manga panels with music and voiceover. And if that part of it is good, the music and voiceover, they'll say, yeah, a great adaptation, but the other people will not. To get the most people to say yes, you probably have to have great animation and great music and great voice acting and great pacing. Don't cut out too much. From the manga, don't add too much from like for your own sake, I don't know. Don't change too much in general. Maybe. It's a complicated question that will not be properly answered by a single person. Because Gigguk is any other, I don't know, person, not even necessarily like a YouTube personality or just a channel on YouTube and whatnot. They're just one person. It's their opinion. You could agree, you could disagree. But overall, they are just one person. They're not shoving their opinion down your throat saying that's the only right opinion. At least if they're like Garnt, that aren't dickheads. In his own words. I'm not calling him a dickhead in any way. It's just in his own words. Anyway, I think I rambled enough, so thank you everybody who watched this. I appreciate it a lot. I hope to see you next time, and goodbye. Have a great life, because one of us has to.